I once got into a lift with former 400-metre hurdle Olympic champion Ed Moses, Rick Astley, and 1996 world champion Damon Hill at a Christina Aguilera concert in Kuala Lumpur.
He kind of smiled about it at the weekend and said, it's a lot of points, but never say never. And I like that.
The racing driver equivalent of putting a circle on your tummy and patting your head, you know.
Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the latest episode of the F1 show, sponsored, as always, by Audi. Now, before we get started today, I want to pay a tribute to the best of them all. Is there anything quite like the Azerbaijani national anthem?
Well, it certainly got us pumped. It got us pumped, didn't it, Simon? You were pumped for the start. I was pumped for the start. I was more pumped about Isaac Hadjar's hydraulic problem because I'm sad. But it was a rousing beginning to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And if we came away from anything from the weekend, apart from saying expect the unexpected probably too many times, it was that, there are a few grids with better pumped up national anthems. And didn't those kids do well belting out the anthem? They were well.
That's what I was going to say, Jamie, you and I, Jamie Chadwick, by the way, is live in Japan right now. What do we say to that? What's hello?
Good evening. Konbanwa, Jamie. It's 6 p.m. as we're recording it.
Konbanwa.
Konbanwa. Jamie and I were at the front with Ant, that little boy in front of George and Lando, just belting it out. They were trying not to laugh a few of them because he was so committed to it.
He was so committed. It's all I heard. I saw other people singing, but I could see that the voice didn't match the people that I was seeing sing from the front of the grid. And then afterwards I saw the videos and yeah, I like the anthem though. It's to the point. Says what it is on the tin. I'm here for it.
Yeah, you knew you were in Azerbaijan at the end of the Azerbaijani national anthem. Now, it's a great place, actually. It's right now in my top 5, Ted, places to go on the calendar. Would you be agreeing with on that one? I mean, it's up there almost. It's like a mini Budapest for me.
What I was interested in, always am when I go to Azerbaijan, first of all, it's got a lovely old town. We did make it there one night for a kebab, which was nice. And the Maiden's Tower, of course, from 1083 or whenever it's from. And what impressed me was that I know this sounds weird, but it's kind of in the middle of the world. I mean, if you take sort of San Francisco and Tokyo as extremes, obviously either side of the Pacific Ocean, then in the middle of it is either it's just above Dubai, which is sort of also in the middle of the world, which of course is why Dubai it's so easy to get to. So I thought the spread of nationalities from visitors in Azerbaijan was amazing. We have people from the States. They can go direct to Istanbul and then just one hop to Azerbaijan from the Far East, from Africa, from other parts of Asia. It's amazing. Very international crowd, wasn't it?
Eurasia, isn't it? I mean, is it? Or was it Asia? I can't remember. Anyway, either way, it was a good weekend, and it was particularly unbelievable. Let's get into it. Qualifying Saturday. Can we remember one like that? 6 red flags and the wind gusting around. And as people were saying, it's the 20 best drivers in the world, Jamie, and yet most of them getting caught out, apart from the best of the best being Max and a few others. But when you see that level of, just drivers going into walls left, right and centre, it shows you just how tricky it was.
I think that's when I enjoy it the most. I kind of reference this a lot, but it's like when you watch professional golf and you see someone shank it into the woods or something. It's quite nice because you realise that they are the 20 best drivers in the world, but they are also human. So I really enjoyed that session. I mean, the conditions, if you weren't there, were crazy. The wind, I think we talk about how windy it is and just obviously that in itself, but the effect that was having on the F1 cars, particularly in Baku with the nature of the track being quite sort of masked from the wind in some sections, but then incredibly exposed in other sections. And then I think it was just fitting that Max Verstappen, out of all of that chaos, all of the mixed upness of the grid, still ended up on top.
How much do you think luck plays a part in those conditions, Ted?
Gosh, well, I mean, it's when is the wind gust going to hit you? I mean, we don't understand it, Simon, because we're not racing drivers. Jamie, what does it feel like when you're driving, your IDEC LMP2 car has this huge sort of fin on the back, and maybe you haven't driven so much in 60 kilometre per hour winds, but does it feel like when we're driving on the motorway and we get a bit of a gust and we kind of just have to adjust a bit, is it that times 10?
Pretty much. I think that kind of feeling that you get when you're driving on the motorway, imagine that, but obviously when you're driving in your road car, there's no sort of aerodynamic, well, there's an element of aerodynamics around it, but it's not designed to stick the car to the ground. So everything that car is designed to do is to corner, brake, go around a racetrack as fast as possible. Wind disrupts that. I think it's actually quite funny when you watch the F1 film, or anyone who has watched the F1 film, and they see in the wind tunnel and Brad Pitt kind of goes in and asks them to change it for combat. It's the same with wind. That car has been designed with an element of wind in consideration, but not 40, 50 mile an hour winds like we saw in Baku. So the feeling is horrible. It can work in your favour in some places. If you've got a really strong headwind into a high-speed corner, that can be quite a nice feeling, but gusts are the worst, because we saw it in turn 16 where it was the most exposed. The amount of times a gust will catch you and you braked in your spot, that any other lap would probably be, if anything, too early, and then this lap you're running deep and you can't predict that. So it's not, I hate the term luck, because I think you did see Max prevail and come out on top, but there is an element of skill and kind of trying to be on the right side of when the wind hits you or not.
Yeah, and Oscar Piastri, he got one of those gusts. They said it was sort of 15 kph behind him as he went into the wall on Saturday. But he obviously, moving on to the championship, Ted had a weekend to forget, very un-Oscar-like. The championship gap down to 25, but that crash in quali, then the jump start, and the resultant crash as he's, I suppose, trying to play catch up, not having been caught out. The 5-second penalty that he received for that, some people are asking about why that doesn't carry over, but it's only multiples of 5 seconds or 10 seconds, something more severe than that gets carried over. And fans of Fernando Alonso will be going, hang on a minute, Fernando had to take his in race, but that's just one of the vagaries at the moment of the rules. But his first really big mistake, there was a little one obviously in Australia, but really big mistake of the season. What did you make of the overall weekend that he had?
I mean, first of all, we should say, more fool us for saying after Zandvoort, that's it. Piastri's got it. One hand on the trophy. He won't make a mistake. He's not going to drop a load of points. Unless he has a sort of unexpected mechanical problem, he's not going to have a terrible weekend where he crashes. That's just not what he does. Well, we should have known that this is Formula One. This is the pressure of racing drivers. It can happen sometimes, just having an off weekend. And it would have been amazing, wouldn't it, Simon, to make it through a whole championship season of 24 races and not have one DNF that wasn't a mechanical. There's always one. You'll always get one or two. All right, Oscar will say it's maybe champion's fortune that he's going to, hopefully for his sake, not make another one and make it through the end of the year when Lando didn't win the race. That's point number one. And then point number two, it seemed to be a sort of compounding issue. He wasn't really comfortable, had the off on Friday. He had the engine issue on Friday, which cost him a bit of time. Lando had the off. And then on Saturday, it was Oscar who stuck it in the wall. And then again on Sunday. And I just wonder, this is a question, I blame myself more than anything. You know how I like to do that, Simon. Why didn't I ask Andrea Stella? Maybe it was because I didn't want to be seen to be looking for an excuse. Was there something about the McLaren this weekend that made it really difficult to control? Was it the wind, the way Jamie describes? Is it more affected when the wind goes and takes away McLaren's lovely aerodynamics? Is it the fact that McLaren's always a bit nervous anyway, something that Lando suffered from the beginning of the season, which Oscar managed to deal with? Is it maybe the braking... what do you call it? The offset braking. I've forgotten the word. Anti-dive. That's it. That's what I was trying to remember. An anti-squat. Something clearly made that McLaren difficult to handle, because Lando and Oscar, as we're seeing from the outcome of the World Championship, are good drivers, and they both stuck it in the wall.
Ant and I were in the passport queue on the way to go back home. And there was a slightly inebriated Azerbaijani man there, and it was one of those snakes, and he kept coming past Andrea Stella, and we kept coming past at the same time, and this Azerbaijani man kept going, was Oscar ill? Was what happened to him? and Andrea, every time he came past, he asked him a different question. And we were laughing our heads off behind, and he said, "Some of these questions are better than yours." And but he just said, "Look, it was one of those weekends where nothing really seemed to go right, and they made a couple of questionable decisions. Perhaps they should have started Lando on the hards. Perhaps they did put him out too early in qualifying. It was not been as bad in terms of points haul since I think it was Vegas in 2023, Jamie. But you're going to have these weekends in the championship, aren't you? And it was just one of those where nothing went to plan for them this weekend. You could look at it like that.
You could, but it's funny because also early in the weekend, to kind of match Ted on kind of what we were saying about Oscar, is I said his bad weekends are never that bad, whereas this was an exceptionally bad weekend. And I think that is the key. When the car isn't in the window, when you're not able to get everything out of it, you've still got to be finishing at least top 5 and just collecting points weekend in, weekend out, because up until this point, the battle's just been internal. And I think that's relieved a little bit of pressure in a way. Now you've got Max coming in. Okay, he is miles away in terms of points in the championship, but it's not impossible. But as soon as you get a thorn in the side and some external pressure, then that's when you really need to manage these bad weekends. And for me, I was very surprised that Oscar made the mistakes he did. I think a crash in qualifying happens, we've seen it to pretty much every driver on the grid at times, but a jump start followed by then a mistake in the race, it just, everything didn't feel right. I think he's been on the back foot for the last 2 weekends a little bit performance-wise, and it'll be really interesting now to see what he comes back with, because even though Oscar's this cool, super calm, collected character, doesn't make him immune to not feeling pressure, doesn't make him immune to not making mistakes. But how will he internally deal with that without, obviously, we're never going to see his emotion, without seeing it from the outside?
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, Lando had a huge opportunity this weekend. And again, not something we've seen from Oscar, as you touched upon there. And are we going to see it again? I mean, maybe as the pressure ramps up as we head towards Abu Dhabi for the last 7 races and 3 sprints. But it's exactly that. We've got 7 races and 3 sprints. He hasn't handed an opportunity like this to Lando recently. And Lando could only make a 6-point gain. It should have been more, shouldn't it? And at least 10 points and got to within... Let's say, best case scenario there, if they'd started him on the hards like they'd started George on the hards and they'd not made the mistake with the pit stop. I know it's if, buts and maybes, Ted, but that could have been maybe 12 points. He could have made a net gain of 3, maybe 4 places, probably 3.
I think they were overwinged, Simon. They had too much. I think they had too much wing on it. I think they were just they had the wing that they thought was going to be for the best qualifying performance, and then allow them to run at the front and sort of run and hide. And it wasn't, to borrow Jamie's reference back to the F1 movie, it wasn't set up for battle, really. So he couldn't get out of the train behind Liam Lawson early on and make any... The first stint was a bit of a write-off, and then they sort of hanged it out as much as they could with the tyre choices that you've already said. So, yeah, he just couldn't make any progress. But then how fast was the McLaren? That was the big unknown, and I guess the big frustration for McLaren on the weekend is they never really understood how fast they were or whether they've got a problem for the rest of the year. Clearly Red Bull have caught up with them, that they know. Are they clearly still in front of Mercedes, who was on the podium? Well, they think they are, but, I'm not quite sure. And I'm not certain that Singapore's going to prove it in terms of the car. But Jamie's absolutely right, is that Oscar is going to have to come back. And I'd be interested to see what he does, to sort of clear his head. But I liked the way, didn't you guys, afterwards, Oscar was essentially saying, I should have known there wasn't going to be grip on the first lap. I shouldn't have known not to be flustered. Not that he admitted he was trying to recover from the jump start, and I should have made the jump start. They were all kind of beginners' mistakes, and he knows that, and we'll see whether he makes them again or has a clean run into the championship.
Yeah, I don't think that McLaren actually, one of the traits of the McLaren, it's not at its best in a straight line and with the short corners that you get in Baku. That's one of the traits of the car. But also those that went from medium to hard, the problem that they had then was that the undercut didn't work, did it? Because it took a couple of laps for the hard to switch on. Whereas if you went the other way round, it appeared the overcut and the undercut worked.
It seemed a bit like the overcut was almost stronger because there was negative degradation on the hard tyre. As the fuel came off, those on the hard tyre, Max and George, I don't know how much they were managing, were able to go quicker and quicker at the end of their stint. So then by the time they went and put the medium on at the very end, they'd already gained quite a lot of track position. So that definitely seemed like the favourable strategy. That said, I think, the damage for Lando was done on Saturday. I agree with Ted completely. I think... I don't think he had a race car to be able to have such a performance advantage or pace advantage to just cut through the field and find himself up in the top three. But that's the worry for them. I think they can't afford in races like that to have like a bit of a mishap in qualifying. We saw last year Lando have a mishap in qualifying where he got the yellow flag and he was still able to recover a lot of positions. Now the field is so tight, you can't really afford that anymore.
Also temperature when it's cold. As it was brisk, McLaren don't do quite so well in the cool conditions. Mercedes do, so we'll see what happens in Singapore. But then there's Red Bull. We've only seen a kind of low-winged, low-downforce version, Simon. And if Max can come back and complete the hat trick in Singapore, then McLaren are in a bit of trouble.
Can we wax lyrical then again about Max as we've moved on nicely to that? His second Grand Slam of 6 that he's got. He's, in terms of numbers of Grand Slam, by that I mean pole fastest lap, leading every lap and winning the race. He's got 2 of those in the last 2 races. 6 in total, along with Lewis Hamilton. Only Jim Clark has got more than that. Gap to Piastri, 69 points. Gap to Lando Norris, 44 points. If you're those two, are your tweeters going slightly here? Are you thinking, oh, here he comes, a quadruple world champion? Because he's back, and it was just another brilliant performance Saturday into Sunday. And every second question we got in the build up to this podcast is he in the championship again? I mean,
no notes for Max. It was phenomenal. I think that's obviously where he thrives in those tricky conditions, but still, they've clearly found something with the car, which is great because that's given him sort of a car that he can compete at the front. But even when it's tough, he always seems to excel, and that's what makes him, in my opinion, in the current crop, one of the greatest we have. And I think it's incredible to see. It's interesting now, the title fight, because it's a lot of points. I think it's 69 points away. I think there's just under 200 left. So it's a big ask, but I would never rule him out. And also, he's not ruling himself out. He kind of smiled about it at the weekend and said, it's a lot of points, but never say never. And I like that. I think he's got this sort of spring in his step again. I think he saw this sort of motivated sort of lull in his atmosphere and vibe earlier in the year. And now it's game time again. He's got that kind of spring in his step and he wants to go after it.
At the start of the weekend, he said, no, I'm not in the championship. End of the weekend, he goes, well, it'd have to go, everything would have to go right. He's back in it. He knows he's back in it. He thinks he's back in it.
He knows he's back in it because he's got the car. That's the thing, and it was always, had he had the car all along, his plan and Red Bull's plan was always to kind of let McLaren stay within touching distance of the two McLarens and then wait till precisely this moment in the season when the pressure is on. Crazy races, unusual tracks like Baku, like Singapore, like Qatar, like Austin, like Las Vegas, and then pounce like the lion he is on the two who haven't actually been in contention for a world championship at the sharp end of a season, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. And it was only the car that dissuaded him, or disappointingly for Max, that he wasn't going to be able to do that. Now he's got the car again, then I think he can go back to plan A for the season, was, okay, let's just keep within touching distance of McLaren, and then let's wait until it's, squeaky whatnot time at the end of the season, and then we'll show them what pressure means going into the end of the year. But Simon, I like to tell you about anecdotes involving people in lifts. I bumped into Kip Kano in the lift, that kind of thing, the middle distance runner.
Yeah.
Did you not think when we were stuck in the Haydar Aliyev Baku airport in a lift with Pierre Vacher, I think he's been justified is maybe the wrong word, but vindicated in sorting out this car. I think we should have a positive word to say for Pierre Vacher, the Red Bull technical director, and his troops, because it was looking a bit touch and go as to whether he was going to A, be able to turn the car around, and B, if not, hold on to his job. And not only has he done the first, but that means he's very much done the second. And I've got to say well done to him, because that must be a lot of pressure off him personally and vindication that they're actually going to sort out a car that they had that dip, no doubt, in the middle of the year. They were good in the beginning of the year. They were not good in the middle of the year, and now they're good again. So well done to Pierre Vacher and all his team.
And actually, you can tell by the two people that went up to collect the constructors' titles in the last two races. It was Pierre Vacher, wasn't it, last time out in Monza,
Yep.
and it was Pedals. It was Paul Monahan,
Yep.
who's head of engineering? Is that his actual title? Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the two technical guys that probably are most at the forefront of pulling it back to where it is. And we know, don't we, that McLaren are worried about that floor upgrade. I talked to Lauren McKees on the way, actually, to talk to him on air. We were just talking off air on the way up. He said it's a lot of little things that have made the car better, but that floor upgrade in Monza was something that they genuinely thought have brought them back into it. And as you quite rightly pointed out, Jamie, we'll know, won't we, if we get to Singapore, which has been Max's bogey track, and he comes out with another victory there, or at least the car looks very, very quick, whether he's fully back in the game.
Yeah, I think Red Bull's bogey track, for whatever reason, I don't think anyone has ever been able to fully put a finger on why they struggled so much there, but it will be really interesting. That's kind of the big test, I think. And if they're strong there, you then look at the rest of the year at tracks that they've been strong at, Brazil, even Austin. There's a lot of tracks that I think are more traditionally suited to their car that I think they're going to be a serious threat. But I did also find it interesting. I think Pierre Vacher said earlier in the week that they're relying less on simulator data, taking more of the driver feedback. I know that was a sort of talking point off the back of Monza with Max, but I feel like they've always probably done that with Max just because of the way he is as a character. But it is interesting that I think that's also helping Yuki and allowing Yuki an opportunity, as well as also getting all the floor upgrades and everything. And I think that as a team is helping them move forwards in a really positive, good way.
You know how you got into a lift once with Kip Keino?
Well, I didn't, but
I
think it's the kind of thing that people say. I bumped into Kip Keino in a lift, and he told me this, but I didn't. But yes, so
well, no, I just want to one up you. I once got into a lift with former 400-meter Olympic champion, 400-meter hurdle Olympic champion Ed Moses, Rick Astley, and 1996 world champion Damon Hill at a Christina Aguilera concert in Kuala Lumpur.
Nice. Okay. Did you just stand there not saying anything to each other, or did you talk about the price of day?
We would just come out of that bar full of monkey nuts where, you could smash the monkey nuts on the floor. Yeah. I mean, there's no point to this story. It's just that's what happened once. I once that genuinely happened. So, Kip Keino, eat your heart out.
Pierre Vacher in a lift. We didn't say anything to him, did we, Simon? I feel we should have said, well, we did kind of say well done to Pierre Vacher, but I think he found the whole pressure thing of his job a little bit difficult, as anybody would. And I think it's good, personally for him, that he's managed to turn it around.
Well, whilst we're actually on the subject of Red Bull, reported yesterday, I think it was first with Jonathan McAvoy in the Daily Mail, that said that Christian Horner, 10 weeks after he was relieved of operational duties following the race at Silverstone, has officially left Red Bull. A lot of people actually thought he had left Red Bull, but he had a contract to sort out. 14 championships, as we know, 8 drivers, 6 constructors. And we understand, or it was reported by Jonathan McAvoy, that the price that he got paid off with was 80 million spondulics. If he'd been paid the full contract, that would have been 110 million. Drop in the ocean, Ted. Drop in the ocean, this, Jamie. But if the contract had been fully covered to the end of 2030, but he's taken this small reduction of 30 million in order to give him the opportunity to shorten that gardening leave and to get back into Formula One. I suppose my point on this one is there have been actually a few reports linking him with Haas this morning, but then again, Jamie, he's been linked with, what's it now, Cadillac, Ferrari, Alpine, you name it. I suppose because of the pedigree and because of the fact that I should imagine if he does try to get back in, he'll bring quite a lot of blue chip sponsors with him. I mean, he wants skin in the game. He has said that if he's going to get back into the sport.
Exactly. I feel like in his career, it'll be easy for him to kind of just tap out and think, okay, I've done my bit, but he will feel like he's got a lot more still to offer the sport. He's been in the sport long enough. I think the one thing he's not fully been involved in is as a team owner. I think that's kind of the last thing to tick off the list. It's interesting the rumours as to where he might go, because I think he will be sought after naturally, as you mentioned, his CV. But Haas is an interesting one to me. I can't fully imagine that. I can't imagine Cadillac. Alpine stands out, kind of makes sense and aligns with maybe where they're thinking themselves. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he crops up, because I'm sure it's going to be a matter of time before we hear where.
Indeed. What about the second Red Bull seat? And what happened at the weekend? Again, on the subject of Red Bull, lots to talk about within the Red Bull family there. Yuki, that's his best performance, Ted. Started sixth, finished sixth. Lauren McKee said he'd gained something. Is that just, again, what we're talking about, the fact that they are able to run it to the floor a lot lower and they've got more downforce? Do you think that's helping Yuki? Is it something as simple as that, or do you know any more on that one?
No, definitely. I mean, we think that the die is already cast in terms of Isaac Hadjar will be Max Verstappen's teammate next year. But what is good is that Yuki is effectively driving to keep himself in the Red Bull driver program at all. And that's what Makis was saying in Monza, was that we've got enough time to see whether Yuki can be a point scorer once again, or whether it's time to offload him to another team. And bring Arvid Lindblad through. So, yeah, I think the crucial thing actually was Friday in Baku. Tsunoda did some testing with this new setup and it worked. And he found out what he needed from the car on long runs. It'll be a bit of a test in Singapore when there's higher tyre degradation, because that's something Tsunoda had struggled with on the long run. So at least in the kind of no deg, as Jamie has already said, what did you say? It was not negative degradation.
Negative deg.
That's right, negative deg, where the tyre actually gets better and better throughout the stint. We'll see whether Singapore will prove whether Yuki has really vanquished his tyre problems on the long runs. But then, crucially, he got it right on the short runs as well, didn't he? He was actually P6 in qualifying, and that set him up for where he was in the race. So, good job, Yuki Tsunoda. The old back. Welcome back, Yuki Tsunoda.
Welcome back. Yes. By the way, I just want to say at this point, I know we've not made any mention of it, but we are going to be talking extensively about Carlos Sainz and that amazing podium for Williams. But we're just sort of working our way through it. And Jamie, I want to get your views on this Red Bull. So actually, there's two seats available at the racing pools. There's one available alongside Max Verstappen. The only other one realistically, because we think the Mercedes one is set in stone now with the two that they've got, although the contracts haven't been confirmed, is at Alpine. But then Flav said that's between Colapinto and Paul Aron. So therefore, is Liam Lawson, do you think he's going to get really, really unlucky? Because almost a victim of the system itself and what it did to him by elevating him to Red Bull, then demoting him so quickly, and then having to rebuild. And then we see the best of him this weekend.
I would say so. I think Liam this weekend was phenomenal. He was great. Actually, if you watch quite closely with the race, even things like his outlaps, the aggressiveness, I know he's been called out for being too aggressive at times, but he sort of timed it perfectly, and he had a huge amount of pressure at the end of that race and just batted it all off with ease, and then obviously qualifying under incredibly tricky conditions. So he was incredibly impressive at the weekend. But you have to look at Isaac Hadjar as a season goes, and in my opinion, he's been stronger, and he's come in as a rookie. He's surprised all of us. And if you're Red Bull, you look at that and you can't think, oh, actually, no, I'm going to leave you there in the junior team. I'm going to wait until you start performing and actually just keep our drivers at the moment. They've got to start really taking him seriously and having a look at him. In my opinion, Isaac's performed at the highest level of one of those sort of second seat drivers, second team drivers, so to speak. And for that reason, I think he's got to be a serious contender for the Red Bull seat next year. Liam is unfortunate in terms of his timing in the process, but he's likely to stay in Formula One next year. If you look at drivers that have been through that system, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, they've all got long contracts now in Formula One. They're not in World Championship contending teams at the moment, but they're still very much in Formula One. So I think Liam's got a good opportunity there. In terms of the second seat at Racing Bulls, that's where I think it gets a bit complicated, because they are only looking within their system. They're, at the moment, from what we understand, they're only looking at Arvid Lindblad. It's his first year in F2, and F2 is incredibly competitive, but he still needs to develop and learn. And I don't want to see him rushed into that seat and unable to perform as a result. I think they need to have a think and consider who they put in that seat more than anything else. And if you look at Formula 2, we have a rookie leading Formula 2, not associated with any Formula 1 team, in Leonardo Fornaroli. Why don't they consider someone like that? Why don't they try and look outside the box at someone that's maybe performing at a slightly higher level than Arvid at the moment, and keep Arvid until he's ready for Formula 1?
Luke Browning,
he's with Williams, but still, another one. British driver, second or third in the championship. There's a few drivers that are performing in Formula 2 that we know how high the level of Formula 2 is. Maybe consider those for the second seat.
Yeah, and what would it cost them, Ted, I suppose, to leave Arvid, as Jamie was saying there, for another year? Do we think that whatever is produced next year, we keep asking this question because we don't actually know what the cars are going to be like, but this car has been so Max Verstappen lent into that the others haven't really had the capacity to, or the ability to help develop it anywhere, which way down their route. If we're starting from a level playing field in 2026 on the cars, will the person alongside Max Verstappen have a better opportunity of actually demonstrating just how good they are, or will the same thing materialize? If it does, it just shows you just how good he is.
Maybe, but these cars are going to be insanely complicated next year. And the way that Alan Permain put it, the Racing Bulls team boss, was that, okay, it's all fine getting young people in, but I'm just not sure next year's the year to do it, because next year is essentially going to be, the racing driver equivalent of putting a circle on your tummy and patting your head, but doing 85 other things at the same time. The energy management is going to be so complicated. And that's why a load of drivers, now that they've tried it in the simulator, have been like the 26 car, have been like, whew, that's going to be a bit different, isn't it? It's going to be a lot of work for us, not much driving, more managing. And so Permain's view was that maybe that's better done with an experienced driver who doesn't have to worry about that part of the game, and then can just concentrate on the management of the car. Cadillac, you look at that, they had many rookies as an option, and they've decided, look, with all the other things going on with new team, new organization, new car, different new engine for them, and in 2026, the last thing they need to worry about is training up young drivers that are new to the game. That's why they've got two of the most experienced drivers, for many of the other reasons. They've got Bottas and Sergio. So I don't know. I think all of this is good, with the young drivers, but not now for 26, but not never at the same time.
Okay, so what's your lineup, Jamie? Red Bull and Racing Bulls for 26. Who do you think it's going to be?
Red Bull, Max and Isaac. Racing Bulls, Liam and Fornaroli.
Do you? Right. I wonder if they're just going to swap Yuki back. I think that might.
I know, but then you're just constantly playing musical chairs. I think you've got to. I just think Isaac Hadjar's been such a revelation this year, and maybe some people knew that he was going to be like this, but so many of us didn't. And I think you've just got to trial new talent in that seat, for example, if you know that Yuki's not necessarily your guy still. That's my opinion. That's
the thing. Is Yuki Red Bull's guy, or is he Honda's guy? That's the question. The Christian and Horner and Helmut Marko always kind of felt that Yuki was linked to Honda, where Yuki was like, no, I'm a Red Bull guy. Oh, okay, I've got links with Honda, clearly, but I'm a Red Bull as you want me to be. And it's whether Mekis, still Marko, and I guess Alan Permain think that there is future in Yuki, or whether Yuki can get himself a third driver at Aston Martin Honda. next year, maybe a third driver role. Maybe that's the way he wants to go. Does he want to stay within the Honda fold and not necessarily within the Red Bull fold? But I don't know. I would go Verstappen, Hadjar, and then I think that Yuki will probably drop down. I think Yuki will have a strong end to the year, and Racing Bulls will think, do you know what? I don't know where we're going to finish in the constructors. It's going to be behind Williams anyway, and they want to kind of beat Williams. So let's get Yuki back if he's scoring points again, and it'll be Lawson Sonoda in the Racing Bulls.
Right, can have 10 yen on it, can't we, Jamie? We'll
10 yen.
You taking that bet now?
A pound.
Okay. Lots
No,
of big spenders, yeah.
less than that.
Yeah, less than a pound. Good. We shall take a break on the F1 show and return, of course, with the triumphant podium that Carlos Sainz and Williams secured at the weekend, and discuss how huge that was for the team. Quick word on our show partner Audi. The philosophy of Audi Sport isn't just about winning races, it's about pushing boundaries. Everything learnt on the track goes straight into Audi's road cars, making them just as thrilling as they are refined. Take the Audi RS range, serious performance, but with a level of sophistication and refinement that doesn't need to be loud to make a statement. It's that perfect blend of power and precision wrapped in quiet luxury. Whether it's their powerful style or the RS Sport suspension with Quattro all-wheel drive for razor-sharp handling, Audi is constantly redefining the future of performance. Book a test drive today to experience the Audi RS range for yourself. Welcome back to the F1 Show podcast, sponsored by Audi, in which we are reflecting on the Azerbaijani, the magnificent venue that is Azerbaijan, and the Grand Prix weekend that we all thoroughly enjoyed. And one of the reasons we enjoyed it so much was because Williams found themselves on a podium for the first time since the washout with George Russell, and that actually didn't take place, one lap in Spa back in 2021, but the first physical podium since 2017, same venue, so it's been kind to Williams. It was Lance Stroll on that occasion. I remember it like it was yesterday, except it wasn't. It was 8 years ago. Second driver after Alain Prost to finish on the podium for McLaren, Ferrari and Williams. As it's the team that you're part of the family of, Jamie, he said he was looking forward to getting to the factory to take the roof off it. But, I mean, how much will this mean to both Carlos and everybody at Williams and Grove?
So much. I think there were some very, very sore heads on Monday morning from that team. And it's funny because this was a few races ago, walked into the comms office in the Williams motorhome at track. And one of the girls had a podium plan on her laptop. And she said, I hope this isn't actually something we have to action, because it needs loads of work and obviously haven't had a podium in so long. And God forbid 2 races later or whatever it was, they end up getting that podium. So I'm sure there's a lot of panic as to actually how to procedurally manage that whole process from behind the scenes. But it's a massive testament to their progress. I think we look at Alex Albon, who also I think deserves a huge amount of credit. The amount of points he's scored this year, the amount of P5s that he's got this year. The car has been there and the drivers have been driving it well. And then from Carlos's point of view, I think that's the exact reason James Vowles worked so hard to try and get him in the team. I think execution, experience, he just delivered massively over that weekend. And I liked it at the end. I think he said the typical kind of, okay, leave me alone now. And he really did know what he was doing in that moment, because he was just green sectors after green sectors, able to extend the gap to Kimi Antonelli, who was probably in a slightly faster car on a fresher tyre than him, and just able to bring it home for the team. So delighted for them. They deserve all the plaudits and all the credit. And now it's just momentum from here. Where can they take this for the rest of the year?
Ted, I mean, I was talking to Anthony in the airport, and he said the thing is with Carlos, and we literally just caught up with James Vowles and tapped him on the shoulder and congratulated him. But he was just saying that Carlos, the reason that they signed Carlos is because they know if you get into this situation, yes, it's going to take a few vagaries within a race weekend to have this opportunity. But he's used to running at the front. He looked really comfortable there, didn't he? He was, okay, yes, George got the undercut on him. Oh, sorry, the overcut on him. But then he needed to hold position, and he did it really well.
Yeah, and there's been a sense of confidence from Carlos after a bit of a dodgy middle part of the season, where frustrations were starting to get in. and about points lost, that he knew this was coming. And he said on the radio after the race, I told you 3 races ago, I know this is coming. We just have to get ourselves in the position and I'll do the rest. So he's great on development for the car. He's great on setup. He's great on getting the car into, a position where he can deliver. It hasn't always been his fault. There's been some operational difficulties, some growing pains with Williams, but I'm just so pleased for him because, previously looking at Monza, or after Monza, the previous race, on the drivers' championship list, the championship standings list that we all get, you had to scroll to the second page of it to get to Sainz's name. He was 18th in the driver's standings with 16 points behind Ollie Behrman. What's going on there? And his points throughout the season were 1 in China, 4 in Saudi, 2 in Miami, 4 in Imola, 1 in Monaco, 1 in Canada, 3 in Belgium. Nothing, just out of the points in Monza. And then wham, second on the grid, third in the race, a hatful of points. I'm just so pleased it's starting to come together. I do feel the tiniest bit of sympathy for Alex Albon in that he would have liked to be the first, the Williams guy to get on the podium. But hey, he's delivered in a brilliant way as well, scoring, many more points for the team and securing that 5th in the championship. And that's important, isn't it, guys? Because there are plenty of people, as if Williams had faltered and not been able to rack the points up, Racing Bulls, maybe less so Aston Martin, but you never know on a good day. That 5th in the championship wasn't secure at all. And now with this podium, it's looking a little bit more secure. So that's great for Williams.
You say about Alex Albon. What does it say about Alex? He was right there at the podium supporting Carlos. Then Carlos, didn't they got diverted? I think I saw something on Instagram whereby the flight got diverted. Then him and Charles Leclerc saying as if it wasn't bad enough with the weekend they have, he had to share a car all the way back to Monaco from Italy with his former teammate, celebrating the podium. But good on him. Look at you. He also had a bit of luck from Sparkles the Unicorn. Understand that as well? There was a little sticker on his helmet. Was it little?
That was Thea. Yeah, Thea, a fan. She made Sparkles the Unicorn a sticker, and that was Lucky Sparkles. I don't know if Sparkles is going to stay on the back of Carlos's helmet. Maybe they'll get a new helmet, a new painted version of Sparkles. I would if I was Carlos, but it's on the thing. And there was a line of thunderstorms going from Corsica, or was it Sardinia, up to Monaco, which is why the private jets couldn't go cross that line of thunderstorms. They had to land in Italy and then drive. They hired a van apparently with all of their entourage. And then driving through that tunnel, one of the many tunnels, Simon, between Italy and Monaco.
Yes, through the mountains there. More points this year, Jamie, than the last 4 campaigns put together. It's incredible, that statistic, isn't it? And credit where credit's due. They're into triple figures now. 101 points Williams have, and their nearest rivals, the RB, 72, Aston Martin 62. It's really, really tight in that midfield. But again, I want to go back to James Vowles and the leadership that he has shown and the processes that he's put in place. You know that because you understand within the team. Can you explain what he's done, how he's tried to reshape it, maybe more in the image of Mercedes, where he kind of learned and took so much advice from his great mentor, Toto?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of structure. He's made some good hires, got some good people involved, and everyone has someone to answer to. So I think previously when the team was a lot smaller, everyone would answer to the top. And so it was Frank Williams and Claire Williams and then Jos Capito and what have you. And now the team is so big, you need really strong heads of departments and really strong people within your structure. And he's brought that in. He's brought a huge amount of structure. I think he's spoken a lot about a lot of things just being on Excel spreadsheets or like handwritten notes in the factory. And now there's a lot more process around everything. I think bringing in Carlos from a driving point of view, I think has been very important. You look at the history of the team and they've never had, or since maybe George Russell and Robert Kubica back in 2019 when they scored 1 point, they haven't had 2 really strong drivers in their lineup. So I think that has helped a lot as well, and it just helps momentum. There's a lot less crash damage this year. That gives them a lot more sort of surplus of upgrades and more budget to spend on what they need to. And I think that's all these little factors combined. It's not one thing, but it's all these little factors combined that make a big difference. But I think what stood out for me at the weekend especially was James Vowles, he was talking a lot about issues they had with the tyres, switching the tyres on in Monza. They come this weekend and they found something, and he was so delighted in his sort of self and in his sort of when he spoke about it, because he was so proud of the team that they've found this sort of switch, and suddenly bam. And I think he now knows they found this sort of one Achilles heel that they had with switching on the tyres. They've overcome, and for the rest of the year I think they can be in a really strong place, which is exciting for them.
Really is. And Carlos Sainz gained 6 places in the drivers. He had 16 points before the start of the weekend, and now he's up to 31, 12th, just tucked in behind Lance Stroll. Still a little bit way off, 38 points off Alex Albon. But as you mentioned, Alex has been just magnificent form all year, apart from this weekend where it didn't quite go to plan. Should we consider Mercedes? Come back to Jamie on this one. The super spreader. Oh, George Russell. In he comes. He was under the weather and he performed. Just think what he could have done if he hadn't had the fever and whatever it was he has that he might have spread to a few others in the paddock. Who knows? Not his fault.
Well, let's find out, because whatever he had is nasty. I think it's all sort of coming out now post-weekend, but I think people are realising how ill he actually was across the weekend. And I think he's a little bit lucky it was Baku. I think he mentioned it as well. But if it was Singapore or something, that would have been a whole world of pain and possibly not even possible for him to drive. I think Baku is slightly less physically intense in that sense. But an unbelievable drive. I think his pace on the hard tyre was not quite a match for Verstappen, but certainly a big step on anyone else that he was surrounded by. And then the big standout for me with George was his pit entry. I think if you watch his pit entry, I sort of watched it through one eye because it was insanely committed. And he gained, I think, 2 seconds in that pit entry phase. So I think all those little details gave him second place. Antonelli, I think, did a great job, but the offset of tyre strategy, I think, made it a little bit more difficult for him to consolidate a podium position.
Touch and go. I mean, as Toto said, he nearly didn't take part, and it was nearly Valtteri Bottas, but he's a competitor, George, and he's saying he was conserving his energy. He wasn't going to the media day. He didn't do the driver's briefing or the meeting on the Friday evening. He just committed to those sessions and managed his battery, I suppose, his personal physical battery all weekend as best he could.
I hear the ringing of a Japanese hotel doorbell.
Yeah, that was.
Is it
I'll have a look, 2 seconds.
Is it turn down service?
No,
Is it dinner? Do you need to go? Do you need to go and answer the door? Jamie can go and answer the door while I answer your question. Yeah. Yes, I mean it's great, isn't it? And all good. All right, good.
Yeah, they're not bad. It's all good.
Sorry, Simon, I've forgotten the question. What was the?
Doesn't matter. Carry on. It was something to do with nearly swapping for Valtteri, but George be fully committed. He wants to keep fighting with Max Verstappen for third.
It's good. You know, it was as you say, it was touch and go on Friday. Valtteri was poised. It's like, I'm ready. But they didn't need him. And George's pace, George's his pace was excellent. And it was a classic kind of, let's just focus on the lap times. Let's do the lap times we need. This is a great stint. I think I heard a team radio message in the middle of the race. Marcus Dudley saying this is absolutely what we need. This is an incredible stint. And it might not have looked spectacular in terms of overtaking people, but he did all the damage in that stint on the hard tyre and then overtook Carlos Sainz. It was a great performance under pressure. And George said, it wasn't, even though Baku looks a physically demanding circuit, it wasn't actually that bad. So yes, the respiratory infection that he got, Simon, sounds nasty, doesn't it? Will hopefully for him have cleared up, and he was clearly much better on Sunday than he had been a couple of days before. But I kind of thought Kimi Antonelli was slightly underwhelming on the weekend, but then I put that to Toto Wolff, and he said, well, he was the only one who was able to overtake Liam Lawson today, which was true. But there was a moment, am I doing him down? Was there a moment in the first stint where he couldn't get past? And we kind of thought, and George kind of gave that message, I think basically saying, can you let me pass because I think I can get past Lawson here. And then they boxed Antonelli to sort that issue out. But I don't know, I'm kind of looking for an incisive overtake from Kimi Antonelli, and I haven't seen one for a while.
Freddie Gonzi asked, why did Kimi pit so early? He lost a podium and gifted it to George.
I think the strategy that Kimi was on I don't know if they knew what the best strategy was, but no one really ran the hard tyre and knew that there was this sort of negative degradation and this better strategy with that tyre. So in my opinion, I think if he had been on the hard tyre, then the medium tyre probably would have got a podium. The fact that he was on the medium, then went onto the hard, is what lost
as explained. As I explained a little bit earlier. Ferrari, quickly on to them. The pace of Hamilton in the second practice session evaporated. He was one of these. He came in very positive into the weekend. He drove okay in the race. They didn't time the swap right because there was only 2 seconds between Charles Leclerc and Isaac Hadjar, and he slowed, but there was too much risk there. I don't think Charles was particularly bothered about it because, as you were saying, it was only for 8th and 9th. But how do we assess Ted Ferrari's weekend?
Early promise went unrewarded, I think, is the best thing you can say. And they have to cling on to that early promise because conditions didn't go their way. The fact it was a bit cooler didn't go their way. Qualifying certainly didn't go their way. And that was amongst the drive between the drivers and the team as well. Even in the race, we heard Lewis on the radio to Riccardo Adami, his engineer, saying, look, I'm struggling here a bit. Can you help me out? Any ideas? Or was that in qualifying? Can't remember. And there wasn't really a response from the engineer. So still things to sort out with Ferrari before they get a podium on merit. I don't know. It was a weird one with Ferrari. You kind of felt that they were getting somewhere, and then it sort of unravelled in qualifying. And then they're now not the constructors challengers to Red Bull. To McLaren. Suddenly it's Mercedes, and Ferrari all thought, well, how did that happen? So not a great weekend.
18 points separating Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull now in the battle for second. As you said, Mercedes leapfrogging Ferrari. But you were talking about the positives that Lewis can take out the weekend is just overall performance versus Charles, Jamie. That was your conclusion from the weekend. Do you want to put your finger on why?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely found something on Friday, particularly with the braking, that he seemed more comfortable with. And at a track like Baku, I think very important. I was a little bit surprised that he was very strong on Friday. Yes, they used an extra set of mediums, but very strong, good performance. But then on Saturday, they reverted to Charles' downforce set level and went more in his direction, and I was a little bit surprised they did that, especially given where Lewis was sort of earlier in the weekend. They must have seen something in the data that sort of led them in that direction. I think where they can be excited is Singapore, no, but Austin and Mexico. They won both of those races last year, Ferrari did, so they've got good tracks coming up, and Lewis is close to Charles. So between the two of them, I'm hoping that they can find some performance in the car, but also push each other on to get some performance out of themselves as well.
Okay, that just about wraps up everything that happened inside the top 10. We'll move on to Singapore in a week and a half's time. Jamie, a few questions for you. It's been great to see a lot of you towards the end of this year. You're saying you're still in the running, by the way, in your European Le Mans. That's coming down to the final race in Portimao. Is that in, 2.5 weeks' time?
Yes, about that. 2-3 weeks' time, I think.
2-3 weeks.
Race.
Okay, great. And you obviously, having taken part in Le Mans last year, you'll be hoping for a return there, I should imagine. What top two get to go back there automatically?
Top two in the championship go there automatically. In terms of the entry, that's the aim. Personally, however I get there, be back on that grid at Le Mans. It's an incredible race, very special. We didn't finish it this year, so go back and see that checker flag next year is the plan.
Thanks for a few of you that have messaged in with some Jamie-specific questions. And Ted, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, bearing in mind you covered W Series back in the day, and we're now keeping an eye on the F1 Academy. Lizzie says, how much do you think, Jamie, it would help to get a woman in F1 if they would make an all-women team in F2 and F3?
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, I think... by all women, I don't know if you mean like all women drivers or all women everything.
Yeah, I think she's covering a few things there. But I mean, what's your thoughts? Let's start with if it was all female drivers.
My opinion is we just need to get more and more young women into grassroots level of motorsport and support that as much as possible, promote it as much as possible, give as much accessibility at the earliest level. And as a result, I think we will naturally see more women get through to the higher levels of motorsport. I think Formula 2 and Formula 3 at exceptionally high levels now. I never reached either of those levels, competing despite doing W Series 3 times. But I think that's credit to the level of those 2 championships. So I think we now need to get more women almost started in the sport, ultimately get to the next level, F4, Formula Regional. Obviously, we have F1 Academy as well within the pathway. And ultimately, the more women you see at that level, the more women you see performing at that level, the more women are naturally going to filter through to Formula 3 and Formula 2. I don't think at this stage we need all female teams in those 2 championships, but I think we do need support to just get as many young girls started in the sport as possible.
Yeah, I'm encouraged, Simon. The F1 Academy did a rookie test in Navarra in Spain last week, and I kind of thought, we should be doing these a lot more. I know there's sort of cost implications, but we're just getting and they should be like 5-day tests because it's seat time. That's really all that is, or rather one of the biggest things that's sort of blockage between getting more female participation in the likes of Formula 4. It's just getting seat time and practice, and that comes from money. But the great job that Susie Wolff is doing with F1 Academy. I was interested to see that Ella Stevens, who is one of Alice Powell's proteges, was fastest in that Navarra test. So when you consider that Abby Pulling, who won F1 Academy last year, is doing well in GB3 now, the British F3 renamed series, that her protege Ella Stevens might go into F1 Academy within a couple of years, still quite young in her career coming out of karting. So yeah, more opportunity, more visibility, as Jamie says. Let's keep going. Let's keep it going. The job that Susie Wolff and everyone is doing.
Flip asks, Jamie, who's the strongest driver you ever competed against? You faced plenty of strong rivals in the W Series and Indy Next, but and also I want to throw that on to who is the most promising female from the youngsters coming through. There's a lot of talk, I don't know if I pronounce it right, Luna Fluxer-Cross within the Mercedes Young Driver program, who actually won a karting competition, didn't she, or a karting series against all males. So, I mean, where do you... 2 parts to that question: strongest competitor, which series, and where does the future lie, do you think, within the young female drivers?
Good question. I feel like in my career I've raced a lot of very different drivers, different careers alike, but strongest drivers coming through, I would say that, well, female specific, you mentioned Luna, she's doing great. Kiara Batting's just signed with Red Bull on their junior program, and working with the Williams team, so we've got a few interesting drivers we're looking at with a lot of potential, so that's exciting. Ted mentioned Ella Stevens. I think in F1 Academy, being British, I think there's 2 really great, exciting prospects that should be back next year, Ella Lloyd and Alicia Palmowski. I think we should look to get behind them because I think they've got a great chance of going for the championship next year. And then personally, I mean, in terms of the obvious one that's kind of done the best would be Lando. We had a few battles in Ginetta Juniors, sort of coming through the ranks. And then, Indy Next, Louis Foster now in IndyCar was a tough competitor. I think there's quite a few sort of through each different thing I've done. Also my teammate, Matisse Joubert, who's now signed in the hypercar Genesis Factory T. He's not a competitor, but he's a phenomenal young talent everyone should look out for.
It's great though, Ted, isn't it? F1 Academy, as we said, we want to see, that's got to stay. It's about, when you look at the Lionesses and what they've achieved in football, you look at the England female rugby team, they're into the final, I think it's this weekend, this Saturday. We've seen it in tennis. It was Billie Jean King, I think it was years and years ago in the late 1970s, who campaigned for equal pay in the male and female stakes at Wimbledon. It's going to take a while with this. It's just about keeping going, isn't it? With F1 Academy, backing it entirely and making sure that whoever wins that comes out somewhere on the pyramid towards Formula One and we can follow their progress. Because at the moment it feels slightly confused. Where are they going, and how does that potentially lead all the way up to the top echelons of the sport?
Well, it's we're talking grassroots. I'm trying to think of some sort of metaphor with grass and trees, but it's a tree. If we start from these places, whether it's W Series and then, Jamie goes into Indy Next and then into ELMS, and then Abby Pulling goes into F1 Academy and then GB3, and we've seen Belen Garcia goes into sports cars as well. Nerea Marti has just gone into, she's in touring cars, and now she's doing something in the the boat racing series. I think she's just been announced this morning, doing some of the boats, and where Emma Kimmerleinen, Jamie, remember, is now doing. So, start with the grassroots, then build it into a tree of opportunity, and then let the branches go. Is this a terribly tortured metaphor, Simon? We've got a tree of W Series and F1 Academy, and then let all the drivers there go into all these motorsports and win like Jamie is doing, and then it will all just develop and blossom from there. God, that's a terrible metaphor, isn't it?
I mean, no. What do you think of Ted's plan?
I like it. I think you should be CEO of future of women in motorsport, Ted.
There we go. Well, I love those. Those years. I mean, I covered all of Jamie's 3 championship winnings, series years in W Series, and the competitors that she had were just great. Beitske-Visser in the first year, and then with Alice Cooper, with Alice Powell as well. Alice Cooper, he's a rock star. Alice Powell. That was a really. That was a really good competition you had with Alice Powell, wasn't it? That was proper sort of 2 warring camps, your different drivers, slightly different people, and it was quite intense towards the end of it, wasn't it? They were happy memories.
Good stuff. Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Lots to discuss. Jamie, where's your holiday taking you in Japan?
All over Tokyo for the next few days, and then in Fuji for the World Endurance Championship. So, first time in Japan, and so far loving it.
Thank you there, Jamie. Enjoy your holiday. Good luck in Fuji, and thanks to Ted. And let's hope the Singaporean national anthem next time out is uplifting, or as uplifting as the Azerbaijani was this weekend. We loved it. I hope you did too. From us all here at the Sky Sports F1 podcast. Bye-bye.